Now let's go and discuss some of the major functionalities for Hyperledger. Hyperledger, now we have stated that, is an enterprise ready solution which allows you with the network security, scalability, confidentiality and performance. Moreover, Hyperledger is offering a modular blockchain architecture which allows you to maintain each component separately. By doing all these structures, Hyperledger is actually providing you with the following functionalities: identity management, privacy and confidentiality, efficient processing, chain code functionality, and modular design. So now let's go with each functionality and understand how Hyperledger Fabric is actually providing that functionality. So the first one, identity management. As we have already discussed, Hyperledger Fabric is providing you a membership identity service which actually manages all the user IDs and authenticates them inside the network. This is very similar to your Active Directory or access control list, where you have different layers of secure services available or permissions available, which you can provide to authorize a specific users for any kind of operation inside your network. So let's take an example to understand this. So for example, you have a case about academic exams for the universities or educational institutes. So only the universities or the educational institutes will have the permission to create a new smart contract which can act as an exam over the network. On the other hand, the students, they can only read or invoke the permissions over the network. They cannot actually create the exam itself. So now we have two sets of permissions available: the universities who have the permission to create a smart contract, and the students who can only invoke or read the smart contracts. So these kind of permissions and these kind of roles will be managed by the membership service provider. The second major functionality which Hyperledger provides is the privacy and confidentiality. So as we have discussed, Hyperledger allows you for the creation of private channels. Channels in turn are the blockchain ledger itself. So every channel is incorporated one single blockchain ledger. This helps us to solve some of the major problems related to industries. So let's say you are working with the supply chain solution, and inside the supply chain solution, you might have different participants. You might have manufacturer, producer, retailer, distributor, and consumer. And then there could be a solution that different participants have to share different data. There could be some data which is only be available between retailer and consumer. There could be other set of data which could only be available between retailer and distributor. And then there could be a third set of data which could be related to the distributor and manufacturer. And now we need a functionality where we want to keep the data private. We don't want the consumer to see the manufacturer data and manufacturer to see the consumer data. So to maintain these kind of situations and these kind of problem statements, Hyperledger provides you with the option of private channels, where the participants can have private channels between each other and share the data on top of it. Moreover, we can also provide the proper permissions for the network participants to make the data accessible or inaccessible to different parties. The third major functionality which Hyperledger provides is the efficient processing. So Hyperledger actually supports concurrent and parallel transaction execution. This increases the complete processing efficiency and accelerates the delivery of the transactions for the whole network. By doing a parallel processing approach, it also unburdens the minor nodes, and in case of Hyperledger, we call the minor nodes as the ordering nodes, from the demands of the transaction execution and maintenance. So it's more of that everything is working in parallelly. Suppose you have two students inside the universities who are invoking a smart contract for giving an exam. So those two transactions can work in parallelly, and it will actually make the complete process very efficient. This is currently not available with the Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchain. Then we have the chain code functionality. As we mentioned already, chain code is more of like a smart contract inside the Hyperledger Fabric network. Chain code can be deployed at a ledger level. By saying at ledger level, we mean that chain code deployment is at the channel level. Chain code can be used to provide any kind of business logic or define any kind of asset ownership inside the network. For example, you can do a chain code for agriculture. You can create one smart contract for creation of apples, the other smart contract for creation of oranges. Then we can create the transactions to transfer the ownership of these assets which are created inside the smart contracts. But always remember one important point: Hyperledger do not support native currency, although you can create tokens on top of it. That means Hyperledger, if you take it as an analogous approach with Ethereum, Hyperledger will never have a native currency as Ethers, but you can definitely create smart contracts and assets on top of it. Apart from user-generated chain code, Hyperledger also has one very specific chain code known as system chain code, which defines the operating parameters of the complete blockchain network which we are dealing with inside the Hyperledger fabric. After that, we have modular design. Inside Hyperledger, we are following a modular design structure, which forms a pluggable component approach. So basically, we are trying to say that you can plug in specific algorithms for managing the identity of the users, doing the consensus algorithm, providing the encryption for the data, and much more services inside the Hyperledger Fabric network. The result of this pluggable nature and modular design is that we have a universal blockchain architecture that can be adopted across different markets, regulations, and geographic boundaries. This modular design provides you with an efficient approach, because now we are not burdening only one of the entity inside the network. So for example, inside Bitcoin, let's take the example of a miner. So inside Bitcoin, a miner is actually validating the transactions, taking the transactions out of the memory pool and adding it to the block, then calculating the nonce value of the block, confirming the block hash and putting the block over the blockchain, and finally distributing the blocks to other peers. So there is a lot of information and lot of calculations happening at the miner end. This makes the process inefficient. But now with Hyperledger, we are dividing everything in a more of a modular architecture. So everyone will have their own capabilities and functions to perform, and this will make the complete process very efficient. So that was about what Hyperledger Fabric is and some of the core functionalities of Hyperledger Fabric. In the next lecture, we are going to learn much more about Hyperledger Fabric and see how different structures, how different key concepts for the fabric are being performed. Thank you everyone, and if you have any queries, feel free to contact us at info@v2blogs.com.